Dissociation. Dissociative identity disorder is in the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual of Mental Disorders. The definition is the presence of two or more distinct personalities or identities, each with its own relatively enduring pattern or perceiving, relating to, and thinking about the environment and self. At least two of these identities or personality states recurrently take control of the person's behavior, and there's an ability to recall important personal information that is too extensive to be explained by ordinary forgetfulness. That's the dissociative amnesia. We class any deeply distressing or disturbing experience that affects psychological health, neglect, physical, psychological, or sexual abuse, and sometimes natural disasters are trauma that can cause dissociation. Dissociation is a mental process that causes disconnection of a person's thoughts, memory, and sense of identity when faced with multiple traumas before the 6 years of age. A powerful creative brain dissociates the trauma from memory. This becomes an amnesic part of a person's personality soul at arrested developmental age that the trauma happened. Dissociation is commonly displayed in a continuum. Symptoms range from mild to extreme. Mild may be experienced as daydreaming and losing touch. Extreme or chronic dissociation may result in inability to function in daily life. Dissociative identity disorder is the extreme end of this disorder, which 1 to 3% of the population have it, but are misdiagnosed. Not one person has all the answers, but there is power in knowledge. There are continuing studies on the effects of trauma from childhood, but more needs to be undertaken on dissociation so everyone can understand how it affects a person and their daily life and relationships. A short summary is included. Dissociation is a creative tool to protect one's mind from reliving trauma. It allows a child who has been traumatized to the extent their mind splits off the memory to be able to carry on daily life. As a child experiences dissociation, there will not be words to easily describe this. Some report as floating above their bodies, having no emotion or too much emotion concerning the same topic, polarizing opinions on the same subject. A major symptom of dissociation is feeling that none of these experiences are your own, but feel as though they are another person's experiences, because each alter personality or part of that person can have a different way of thinking, acting, or perceiving the world they live in. These experiences feel like they're not you, but the awareness of memories that it was you. Dissociative amnesia goes beyond normal forgetting and is not caused by illness, drugs, or alcohol. It is on a continuum within the dissociative parts of self. In some cases, some parts know of others, and other parts know nothing of each other's existence. Amnesia between the parts of self could present situations where one part is engaging in a way another part would not. Some parts only do or cope with certain situations. Like one might be work-orientated, another home, and many age-arrested child parts play with biological children. All the while, you are not really aware you have these parts that do these daily things to get through. Now, there are a lot of people that, they do act one way at work and act one way at school and act one way at home, act one way at the shops, act a different way. Those are some people that are adaptable in situations. I'm not saying that that is multiple personality disorder at all. The distinct difference in that compared to somebody with total dissociative identity disorder is the amnesia to it because of suffering severe trauma. So, you'll get those people that will be different in different places, but they're not amnesic to the fact that they're acting differently. They know that this is how I am at work and this is how I am at home. They know. Whereas a dissociative, amnesic person will not know. They will not know that they are different. They will not know then because the amnesia is higher. Time distortion is a huge issue with parts because parts may not have surfaced since the trauma. So that part could be 6-year-olds. They only know the trauma, and it may be horrifying to find the body as a completely different age to how they feel, think, or perceive the environment. One part might feel blank or numb and not know feelings and emotions, where another might have completely overwhelming feelings every time that they are there in charge. Some may be in intense physical pain, but a personality switch can occur to a part who is totally fine and not even remember where the pain stemmed from or that it was even there. There are times where you know something happened, but it's like watching it happen to someone else. It is not you. There is no memory. Sometimes people won't register to their name being called as it is not the body name. Some parts will clearly be recognised as different to the body age or personality, and this can be distressing for people who have no idea what dissociation is, let alone they are switching to a child part of self who is traumatised and age arrested. DID in the psychiatric literature stem back centuries. For example, in 1791, Eberhard Gmelin reported a case of what he called exchanged personality, in which his young female patient showed discrete changes in behaviour, knowledge base, demeanour, and vocal characteristics. Okay, as well as amnesia and dissociation is caused by events that are life-threatening or overwhelming, and then can be splitting before the age of 6 and 7 with trauma, and then after that your brain is used to dissociating out, so subsequent traumas that will happen will most likely be dissociated and become another part of the self. And after those, if you've suffered trauma from around the age 7, 8 years old, it won't be so dissociated as such. There won't be the amnesia there. There might be different ways of thinking sometimes, or different parts of self, but they won't be total amnesic and dissociated away from the host personality. Is being disconnected and separated completely from yourself as a person, and feeling that it is completely another part of another person, is how it feels a lot of time to be dissociative. Memories are completely separated and blocked off by amnesia, and a lot of trauma in early childhood will cause people to forget huge blocks of time, and different parts can hold different things. So, there might be one part that is, so a trauma can happen, and off of that one trauma, if you've had many traumas, your brain can just split off so much easier than anybody else. So you could end up with parts that only know the smell of the trauma, parts that only know the sound, parts that only know the seeing of the trauma, and the other senses, so parts can just hold the memory of it, or the emotion. And that's because the brain has become so adept at splitting off. It'll split off different parts, even off of parts and the likes. So I use the word alter personality or part for the different part of a person that is dissociated, or a part of that's separated totally away from the self, from what we call the host. There are things that we use like fragments. That's a small part of the self that has a limited function in the system. They may only do one function, like open a door. There's co-consciousness, where you can be a part with another part up at the same time, present and in control, and there's both parts of the person in control of the body. There is what we call the core, or the core is, a lot of people, how do I word this? The core, a lot of people believe, is the baby that was born that would have formed its personality. Myself, I feel the core personality is our spirit. I feel that is our spirit. Our core personality is our spirit, who the one we were sent here to be. But we got damaged, and so the splitting of the soul happened, which affected the way we operate in the world, and that let spirits in, other spirits on top of our spirit that we were born with, and it can cause spiritual abuse to you. Oh, I think I've got off a little bit. Whoops. Switching. Switching is when a personality, a part, will switch to another personality. Now, in different systems, because you'll have people that have been through ritual abuse without the satanic or Luciferian aspect, because they're taken to Masonic rituals, and there might not necessarily be satanic or Luciferian stuff going on. It'll be an initiation rite, or ritual sort of thing. So you'll have people with ritual abuse altars, but without the satanic or Luciferian effect. But in effect, I mean, all of it is evil, satanic, and disgusting anyway. But there are different layers of ritual and religious abuse included, in this. So it's more definition, because we've got people now saying, they're MK Ultra, but they are being targeted victims, and practically everyone's MK Ultra, but there's different levels of it. I mean, you've got what I'm trying to teach about, which is trauma-based mind control, which is the highest end of the scale programming, which involves all factions of ritualistic and religious abuse: satanic, Luciferian, military control, mind control, just hideous stuff. So, yeah, there will be different systems. There will be some people with DID with no people with DID with no structure to their system. They'll have no structure to their personalities, and how they are placed out within their mind or within their system. Whereas a satanic, or even then, yeah. So, and satanic ones will have different parts that do different jobs, and some of them will be in the cult. Then you've got programming, which is the next level, which is actually traumatizing and giving the parts names, dates, jobs, triggers, codes, cues, symbols, and programming them and training them in the occult, deep in the occult. So these different systems and different triggers. So a trigger is something that will activate the brain, and it may cause like flashbacks, hypervigilance, memory issues, and in mind control, a trigger is can be a series of behaviors or things that somebody does to you or in front of you to trigger your parts. Host personality. There's lots of different definitions of types of systems and personalities, which you can go into. Yeah, so those are some of the things. We have different parts of our brain which they've used, and we have your frontal lobe, your thalamus, your hippocampus, your amygdala, your hypothalamus, your olfactory bulb. You've got your limbic system, which is involving those things. There, the amygdala, the hypothalamus, the hippocampus, and the thalamus. And you've got your corpus callosum, and they do actual, what is it? Two brain splitting. So they completely have two different systems on different sides of the brain. The trauma and things that happen to the people being programmed or involved in ritual abuse is quite damaging to the body, to the different parts of the body, like the hippocampus and the limbic system, the amygdala, and just those parts of the brain where stress hormones are released, and thoughts and emotions are affected. Your adrenal system is affected by trauma and torture over a period of time. The body also works in conjunction with the brain, and so you can have a lot of bodily symptoms without having actual bodily symptoms, but they can be body memories as such, I'd say. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at. Body memories. Your body will always tell you the truth. It's like, is there something I need to forgive my body for? Am I overworking my body, or does my body need to forgive me, more like it? So the brain functions move differently in a traumatized person, rather than moving to the next part of the brain, like the hippocampus, it gets stopped and emotions are impacted, and stress hormones flood the body continuously as well with trauma. Memory is poor because of trauma. Healing and the brain is the most important thing in the part of healing. Satanic ritual abuse, mind control, ritual and religious abuse. Because we have left brain and right brain, we have different programming that may have happened to people. So the brain gets split between those two things, and different programs will go on different layers. So we have to ask God to heal the corpus callosum. With dissociation, you have amnesia and disorientation. You can have different clothing in your wardrobe. Some parts like different things. You can be hearing different voices and different dialogues, or having conversations within yourself and kind of tell that it's not really you. Handwriting is a big one. Handwriting is a big sign that you've got multiple personalities, because your handwriting will change between different parts. Yeah. So there is dissociation on a continuum, and there is also at the very high end polyfragmented DID, which is a whole lot of parts that are fragmented off of parts, and there's definitely more than 100 parts there. Also, you have a distorted feeling in your body. Sometimes your body doesn't match your mind, what's going on. You feel disconnected, or you are like a robot, going just like robotic movements, robotic everything. You know what you got to do, like pick up the kids, get dinner, get the kids to bed, those things, and so you just robotically just move through that whole thing just to get to the end of the night, just to survive. Depersonalisation and derealisation are the body cues for dissociation. You don't recognise yourself sometimes. Everything feels unreal. You're in a place where you've been before, but it feels like you haven't been, or it feels surreal. There's a surrealness to derealisation and depersonalisation. It's, very surreal way of feeling. And there'll be some people that will just have 2 or 3 parts of themselves from a couple of traumas. They'll operate out of most likely the host personality that they are as the older person, but they might have a couple of parts there. One might be 3 years old, been bitten by a dog, so very scared of dogs, doesn't want to have anything to do with dogs. And then because that trauma has already happened and the brain has split it off, the brain has become already accessing dissociation as a tool to cope. And so, you might have another part that's 5 years old, and they witness their 9-year-old brother getting beaten up at school, and they might have a part that got traumatized and split off from that. And then they might have another part that's, say, a year or so older because they were sexually abused by a friend's dad. So you have 3 or 4 parts there at different ages. And then you'll have many different types of what we call systems, personality systems. When their trauma is intentional, for satanic ritual abuse victims, they know that they're doing the trauma to actually split off an identity, to program it. And so they do it intentionally to actually create parts and make a whole system out of parts and give those systems jobs and things for end times. But I think I might have gone into dissociation enough tonight, and don't want to go too much into it and confuse people. So yeah, I might stop there and just have a pray. So we thank you, God, for this time. We thank you for giving us your words and ways to talk about dissociation and bring some of the darkness out into the light by shedding truth on it. We thank you for this time. We thank you for blessing everybody, and we love you, God, and we worship you and praise you. Just thank you so much for everything that you do, and that you can heal this and you will heal this, and you love every part of every person, in every part of every person you love so much that you're coming to bring complete full healing to those parts, so that every person can become whole and integrated and at peace, and all the parts are healed. And that is just amazing, God. So we thank you for coming to do that. Amen.